Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Francis Bianca Isabel T. Rivera, but you can just call me Bianca. I am in section Z08 and today I'm reflecting on our course, GELITWO. This is my vlog on what really stood out to me in the course. We've covered a lot of interesting topics, right? From understanding Module 1, national and the global, Module 2, colonial past and post-colonial present, and Module 3, mind, body, and desire. I'll share my I'll be sharing my two biggest takeaways from each module and mention some specific materials we've covered to explain why these points resonated with me. But wait, there's more. Besides the main modules, I have the bonus takeaways from what we did in class covered outside of the modules. Finally, I'll share my thoughts on the big question: how does Janet do learning help me not just as a DLSU student, but as a person contributing to society even after graduation? Grab a snack, get comfy, and let's dive into the details. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more content. First, let's explore Module 1, National and the Global. This module focused on how literature can cross borders and touch on emotions that everyone understands while maintaining local flavor. I wanted to see how today's creators keep their national stories, films, and essays relevant to a global audience. I looked at Catherine Lim's The Taxi Man story and the short film In a Heartbeat. Both examples show how creators adjust their work to connect globally while honoring their cultural roots. Lim's story highlights the classic conflict in Singapore between traditional values and modern life through the voice of a taxi driver. Even though I have never been to Singapore, I understood his frustration and perspective on modernization. This shows that a story with a local soul can resonate with anyone, especially since she uses relatable dialogue and humor. This leads to my first takeaway. Universal themes bridge cultures. The most effective way for national stories to go global is by focusing on shared human experiences, like progress or morality, which resonate with people no matter their background. My second takeaway is that a specific local perspective increases relatability. A local voice, like the taxi driver's personal stories, offers an authentic viewpoint that helps global audiences understand universal struggles, such as generational conflict. Next, In a Heartbeat. This is a beautiful animated short story that tells a story of a young love using many visuals and music. Its simple message of acceptance is easy to grasp, regardless of language. This illustrates my final takeaway for Module 1, which is accessible formats improve global reach. Modern creators often use tools like animation or simple emotional storytelling to overcome language and cultural barriers. Ultimately, both examples show that national products remain relevant by balancing unique cultural details with emotions and experiences that everyone can relate to. Next, let's discuss Module 2, Colonial Past and Post-Colonial Present. It was truly eye-opening. This module explores how colonialism affected the culture, society, and mindset of the colonized, and how these effects continue to play a significant role in life today. The key text for me was Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's The Danger of a Single Story. It hit hard by explaining that a single story occurs when we judge people based on just one, often limited narrative, leading to harmful stereotypes. My first takeaway is that challenging the single story is personal. I learned that recognizing and combating the danger of a single story begins with looking inward and questioning the narratives I absorbed from my own privileged background and media consumption. I realized my single stories came from how I grew up, particularly from watching Filipino movies and teleseries that repeatedly portrayed certain characters, like poor or single mothers in biased ways. Coming from a somewhat privileged background made it easy for me to accept those portrayals without even questioning them. This leads to my second takeaway. Unlearning bias is an active post colonial practice. The work of unlearning the stereotypes and assumptions I grew up with is a practical way to engage with post-colonial thinking. It involves intentionally breaking down old thought patterns that judge people based on limited biased perspectives. Now, I am actively working to unlearn these biases by listening more and allowing people to share their real stories, not just the ones I see on TV or just with one encounter. I even try to gently call out to my friends when they judge too quickly, reminding them that there is always more than one side to every situation. This whole process of questioning the stereotypes I grew up with feels like practicing post colonial thinking. It's about breaking down the mindset that labels people as less than because of their background. This brings me to my final takeaway. The goal is compassion and growth. Adichie's message is simple but powerful. When we embrace multiple stories, we become more compassionate, grounded, and ultimately better people. This effort to challenge those old stereotypes feels like post colonial thinking in action. It's about moving beyond the mindset that one privileged view defines everyone. The main takeaway is that by seeking out more than one story, you don't just understand others better, you actually become more empathetic and more open minded. Finally, for module 3, mind, body, and desire was a particularly a little intense for me. It made us examine the complex and messy desires that push people to the margins, especially those related to mental health, self harm, and personal boundaries. The materials explore the divide between what society accepts and what it rejects. These inner struggles can lead to harming ourselves or even others. A perfect example was when I read the musical which I also watched, Dear Evan Hansen. It is a powerful modern story about mental health in the digital age. Evan, who experiences severe social anxiety, writes a private letter to himself. Then this letter is mistakenly taken by Connor Murphy, and after Connor's death, the letter is misinterpreted as proof of a secret friendship. And to comfort the grieving family, Evan panics and lies, creating an entire friendship that doesn't even exist. This beautifully illustrates my first takeaway: fabricate a legitimate feeling identity for acceptance. However, the lie quickly spirals out of control, turning him into a sudden school hero, and then he starts the Connor Project. This deception, even with good intentions, shows the second key takeaway. Deception, even for comfort, causes lasting damage and betrayal. The lie brings trauma and betrayal to the Murphy family, and even Evan's mom, highlighting how false narratives eventually collapse. The musical makes you see how quickly and easily lies can spread in our internet driven world. In the end, Evan confesses everything and matures. This leads him to reflect on the importance of being true to himself. This brings me to my final key takeaway for this module, which is authenticity is the key to true connection and healing. It proves that letting go of fabricated stories is a necessary step towards self acceptance and genuine relationships. Moving on to my key takeaways outside the modules. One of the few topics we explored outside the main modules was the elements of fiction. It's basically the tools author use to create every novel, short story, or screenplay. We learned that each piece of fiction relies on six main parts working together: plot, setting, character, point of view, theme, and style. Understanding these elements isn't just for analysis, it changes how we read. For example, the plot is the sequence of events driven by conflict, while the character is who drives that action and the choices they make. The setting provides us with the time and place. And the POV is who tells us the story, like first person I or third person omniscient, he or she. In this lesson, what stood out to me the most was how character analysis goes far deeper than I used to think. I always assumed characters were shaped mainly by the plot, but after going through the discussion, and our recitations in class, I realized it's actually the characters who shape the plot more. When we looked at names, physical descriptions, and the roles of the protagonist and antagonist, I noticed how even the smallest detail can already set the tone for who the character is supposed to be. What even the smallest detail, what struck me even more was the idea of round versus flat characters. It made me reflect on how much I tend to pay attention only to the main character without even seeing how the simpler, static characters also influence the story in their own quiet way. What really stayed with me was the part about conflicts and motivations, understanding that characters wrestle with themselves, other people, and even fate made them even feel more human. When the lesson talked about motivations and flaws, I found myself relating it to real life, how people act based on what they want, fear, or believe in, even if it makes them imperfect. The segment on reliable and unreliable characters also made me rethink how I read stories. I realized how a narrator's honesty or lack of it can completely change the way I interpret events. It reminded me that sometimes a character's version of the truth is only one perspective, and as readers, we have to read between the lines. My main takeaway from this lesson is that character analysis isn't just about understanding fictional people, it's about understanding how people work in real life. Characters become meaningful when they are driven by real emotions, flaws, and choices. Because of this lesson, I feel more attentive now, not just to what characters do, but why they do it. It made me appreciate stories on a deeper level, reminding me that every character, no matter how big or small, is crafted with intention, and that the best stories are the ones where the characters feel alive. One of the most surprising topics we explored outside the main modules was the hero's journey. This is the ancient universal story structure that appears in everything from myths to Harry Potter. The idea comes from Joseph Campbell's work and describes a 12-step cycle where a hero leaves the ordinary world, answers to a call to adventure, faces a huge crisis, which is their darkest moment, and finally returns with the treasure and a changed self. Before class, I have never really looked at into terms like monomyth, or crossing the threshold, which made it tough at first. However, after discussing it with our professor, everything clicked. My first takeaway is that the hero's journey is the universal blueprint for transformation. It shows that every successful story, and even our own lives, follows a cycle of leaving comfort for growth. This concept became very useful to me. I realized that my second takeaway is that this framework changes how you engage with stories. Now, whenever I watch a movie or read a book, I unconsciously look for the call to the adventure or the mentor and connect them back with 2 hour literature lessons. For instance, when I watched the Bar Boys musical, I quickly recognized the characters hitting their crisis moment right before their bar exams. I'll admit at first my answers for the discussions or for the additional points were a little different from what our professor expected, which was a little frustrating. However, seeing how the elements were applied to the examples in class really helped me understand better. I've started applying the refusal of the call to my own life when I procrastinate on big projects like my thesis. I realized I just needed a mentor like a study buddy to push me to cross the threshold. This new perspective has helped me see that my struggles with academic stress fit into this larger pattern. The best part of the videos was how they showed that this cycle isn't just about slaying dragons. It's about overcoming everyday fears and stepping out of our comfort zones. And this brings me to my final takeaway for the hero's journey, which is true personal treasure is found by conquering your own inner fears. This reminds me of Campbell's quote: "In the cave you fear to enter lies the treasure you seek." It's a really powerful tool for understanding both fiction and life. Another one that I enjoyed was the mystery box game. I really enjoyed playing this game in class, but I agree that it would have been even more fun to play it in person, especially with the power ups and background music. But these also help in making the activity still engaging despite it being online. What I liked about it was how it tested whether we truly listened during discussions and if we were actually absorbing the lessons. It also showed how important it is to do your part as a group mate because all the answers were already in the materials that we have worked on together. And moving on to the optional work, I've always liked watching theater productions but felt that these were too expensive. However, with the little push of getting additional points for the class, which I thought I really needed, I recently got to experience four different theater productions, which were Dear Evan Hansen, Canning Itim by Studio A Productions rather, Barboys the Musical, and Shrek the Musical. Each provided me with a fresh perspective on international and local artistry, as well as the audience experience. However, in this part of the vlog, I will only be talking about the latter three since I was able to share my thoughts on Dear Evan Hansen already. Starting off with Canning 18, I was amazed by how creative the design or the set was, particularly the clever use of lighting and the beautiful sets, which made the small venue even feel magical and it was very immersive. This supported my first key takeaway that high quality theater depends more on creativity than on a large budget or venue. Like, even if the venue was somewhere that felt a little sketchy, they were able to bring the production to life. Barboys was impressive due to its thoughtful stage design and the dedication of the cast. They conveyed the students' struggles effectively, teaching me about the importance of self belief and having a strong support system to achieve my goals. My second insight came from noticing some technical issues in both Board Boys and Canning a Team. It was clear that the audience's comfort and viewing experience are just as important as the performance or production itself. Finally, Shrek the Musical, it was really just outstanding. It showcased the Filipino talent, which is really world class, with costumes and stage production rivaling my any international show I've seen in the past. This key reinforces my third key learning, which is supporting local theater is crucial because Filipino artists can produce top-notch productions. We must continue to celebrate and share their work to create a community where everyone, like the message in Shrek, can embrace their uniqueness and belong. Finally, I will be answering the question: how does a literature class like GELITWO stick with me long after finals? Honestly, the biggest benefit isn't knowing specific poems. It's about developing a critical, empathetic lens that I can use in all areas, all aspects of my life. This course has greatly increased my self awareness. Learning about Adici's Danger of a Single Story has permanently changed how I consume media. It taught me to question a simple narrative I encounter, whether it's about a news event or even just myself. This helps me constantly work to unlearn my own biases. Plus, understanding the hero's journey gives me a great framework that I can use for my own life. When I face a setback, I can now instinctively look for the crisis or the treasure. This makes me feel more like the main character in my own story and helps build my resilience. The lessons on authenticity from materials like Dear Evan Hansen remind me that after DLSU, I need to form relationships and make choices based on my true values, not just what seems appealing or accepted. More broadly, Jelly 2 has prepared me to be a better member of society. By studying the colonial past and post-colonial present, I gained a more nuanced understanding of why our society deals with certain political or and cultural issues. This has led me to actively reject privilege. Society deals with certain political and cultural issues, and views and appreciate local stories. Seeing the world-class talent in local productions showed me the importance of supporting Filipino artistry. I have become a conscious consumer who backs local creatives and national products. In the end, analyzing structure and style has sharpened my communication skills, which is essential for civic engagement. Essentially, GELITWO has transformed me from a passive observer into an active interpreter of the world. It has given me the tools to not only read literature, but also to read the world with more empathy, skepticism, and appreciation for complexity. So, well, that brings us to the end of my Jelly 2 reflection. If there's one thing this course taught me, it's that literature isn't just about old books. It's the ultimate toolkit for navigating the real world. By learning to challenge the single story, embrace our hero's journey, and appreciate local artistry, I'm leaving with a critical, empathetic perspective that will stay with me long after I leave DLSU. I realized that being a good reader means being a good citizen. It's about constantly seeking the full, complex narrative. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through my takeaways. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more content, and let me know in the comments what your favorite Jelly 2 lesson was.